Hello everybody, Boyan Dulabic here. Welcome to Filmmaking today. So, does a 2-year-old camera still hold up today? Let's find out. This is the Panasonic G85 mirrorless camera. It was released in 2016 as the predecessor to the G7. It's a 4K camera that also shoots 16 megapixel images. So the question is it still worth getting this one in 2018? Well, let's take a look at the various features. First, let's take a look at the hardware. This camera is actually really nicely equipped when it comes to programmable buttons or just buttons in general that will allow you to quickly do something like change the ISO, aperture, and all that kind of stuff. On the back, you'll find your typical buttons. So we've got an ISO button, white balance, focus button. You've got the playback button, display. There's also a knob where you can toggle between different focus modes. And there's also 4 function buttons that can be programmed to do other things. The screen is also fully articulated, which is always a plus when it comes to both photography and videography. On the top, you'll see 2 rings, obviously the shutter button, a video record button, another function button that you can program to do a lot of different things, and then there's 2 dials, one on each side. One has your typical functions where you can switch between program mode, aperture priority, shutter priority, manual, video. You've got 2 programmable modes, C1 and C2. You've got the art mode with the different filters, intelligent auto plus mode, and scene mode. On the other side, you have your single shooting mode, you have your burst mode, 4K photo mode, post focus mode, time-lapse photography, and also stop motion, and also the timer mode. On the side, you'll see an HDMI plug-in, USB, mic input, and remote input. The only thing that this camera doesn't have, which will disappoint some people, is a headphone jack. When it comes to the image quality, this camera is certainly not the best on the market. However, it's also not the worst by any means. If I compare this one to my other camera, which is the Olympus OMD EM5 Mark II, it does not hold up to that one when it comes to photography. It's not quite as sharp, and also it doesn't perform as well when you have fast-moving objects. Now, that is when compared to the Olympus one. In general, the photography quality, it's pretty good. If you are getting this camera primarily for photography, you might want to get something like the OMD EM5 Mark II or maybe one of the Sony ones. However, if you are getting this one for videography and photography is a secondary thing, it will definitely do the job. Now, this camera does have something very interesting that is photography related. There are a few features that do make this camera stand out when it comes to photography. One of those features on this camera is called 4K photo. So basically what it is, you take a video, an Mpeg-4 video, and then it allows you to scrub through it frame by frame and save an individual frame as a JPEG. This is really awesome if you are shooting fast-moving objects, whether it's kids or whether it's animals, or if you are shooting cars that are moving, or really anything that requires you to capture fast motion. So there's 3 different modes on this camera. So the first one here, as you can see, it's just called 4K burst. This basically means when you select this one, basically what that means, it kind of works like burst mode. When you press the shutter button, it will start taking or shooting video, and then when you release it, it will stop. So this is, I guess, if you need something quick and, again, basically like burst mode. You press the shutter button, you let go, it stops recording. So that's cool. The second one is called 4K Burst SS. That just means sort of like the same thing. It's just the difference is you press the shutter button and then you let go and it keeps recording. And then when you press the shutter button again, it will stop recording. So in that sense, it's basically like taking actual video. And, you can go on. I personally don't know if there is a limit. If anyone knows, please let me know in the comments. I've done 3-minute video clip, and I think that's the longest I've gone, and it kept shooting. So I don't know if there is a limit or not. But anyway, that's that feature. Now the last one is 4K pre-burst. So this is actually pretty cool. What this does is, from the moment you press the shutter button, it will actually record the second prior to that moment and 1 second after. So it'll record 2 seconds in total. Basically the way that works, the moment you turn on the camera and you switch it to this mode, the camera is basically active and it is pre-recording without, it's not actually recording, but it's always getting ready to record, which is great. Again, if you have a, you know, a newborn, and you know, sometimes you press that button to take a photo or video and you missed it by literally 1 second or maybe even, you know, half a second. Well, in this case, you will have it already. I do wish that this mode would record for longer than 1 second after you press the button, so 2 seconds in total. I wish you could, you know, set to record for, you know, as long as you want. You know, I just want that feature where it will pre-record the 1 second prior. It's not the end of the world, because a lot of times this mode is used if you know that, you know, you are going to capture something right there, and, you know, 2 seconds in total is enough. So that's this mode, and like I said, this is really cool. Now let's talk about the specs of this. So basically, the way it works, after you shoot the photo or the video, technically, you go to the playback mode, and so this is something that I shot already. Any 4K photo file will be indicated with the 4K icon up here. That will look like this. And basically, if you want to access the file, you can either click on that or tap on that icon, or you can push this up button, which is also the ISO button, and you can see that arrow pointing up. So once you push that, give it a few seconds, it's going to analyze it. And now, as you can see, you've got this down here, so you can literally just scrub through it. And you can go, okay, let's say I like this. There's not much happening in this shot, but, you know, basically this is how it works, right? Or you can use these buttons here and go frame by frame. And let's say this was the shot that I really wanted. If you want to save that as a file, that you can do it in one of two ways. You can push this button or tap this button on the screen, or you can push this button here, and then it's going to ask you, do you want to save it? You go yes, and now it's saved as a JPEG. Now this is saved as a 8 megapixel JPEG. Now, I know that doesn't sound a lot, considering this camera shoots in 16 megapixels. There's newer Panasonic cameras that shoot in 20 megapixel, like the G9, I think. I'm pretty sure that one does. Believe me, 8 megapixel in terms of resolution is fine. You're still talking about a resolution that's somewhere in the 3000, I can't remember exactly, but it's 3000 something, which is plenty. First of all, if you wanna print that photo, you could print it as high as basically a letter format, you know, 1 letter page. I think you can go a little bigger than that, but you can print it, you know, in that size without losing any resolution, which is awesome. So certainly any regular size photo, or 5x7, a little bigger than your average photo size, you're gonna be fine, right? Now, let's be real. How many of us print photos these days? Not a lot. We view them on screen, on our phones, tablets, whatever it is. Again, a 3300, I think, somewhere around there, resolution. It's enough if you're viewing it. Certainly if you're viewing it on any 1080p TV, it'll be more than enough. And even if you're viewing it on a 4K TV, that is almost 4K resolution, so you'll be fine when it comes to that. Now, another cool thing is this actually, like as I mentioned, this actually saves the file as an Mpeg-4 file. So that's actually a video file. It's almost 4K resolution, which means if you are exporting this as 4K, you will have to zoom in a little bit, but it'll still work. Now, if you're exporting your files as 1080p, which is what I'm doing, you have more than enough. You can crop in. You're going to lose a little bit at the top and at the bottom if you crop in full screen, because it is a 4:3 format, like an image. It's not a 16:9. Now, there is one thing to keep in mind, which is very important. If you are shooting in regular burst mode, or if you are shooting in the 4K pre-recording mode, where it will record 2 seconds, those two do not record audio. So when you take a look at that Mpeg-4 file, there is no audio. The SS mode, the middle one, will record audio and video, which is fine with me because honestly, I started using that mode most often because it just gives me the most flexibility. So when you transfer that file over to your computer, it will be a full-on video file with audio and video. And like I said, it's pretty sweet. Another really interesting feature that this camera has is called post focus. So basically what that is you take an image like we have right here. So you put it in the post focus mode, which is a dial up here. And then you put it in one of the camera modes. So whether it's aperture, priority shutter, or program mode, any of those. And then let's say, I want to take an image of this lens. So you press the button. It will take a few seconds, and once it's done here, almost done here, there you go. So let's go into playback mode. Now, as you can see here, take an image. Well, whoop-de-doo, right? Nothing special. Well, again, if you touch this button up here or push this ISO button here, it will go into the post-focus mode, and what will allow you to do now, so we've got the lens in focus, we tap here, boom, the background is in focus. Or back to the lens, this foreground here, and this is really cool. So you can actually, now what you can do is, let's say I want the lens. So again, you push the menu button here, or this on-screen button down here, and you can go save. Now it will have saved a JPEG of this photo with the lens in focus. Now let's say, we're back in this mode here. Let's say I want this now in focus. Now I can save this, boom. And I have now two separate images. Let's go back in here and let's take a look. So this was that file, and here's the image that I saved where the lens is in focus, and here's the other image. This is really cool. Right. Again, this will only save the file as a JPEG, so it won't do RAW. So much like the 4K photo mode, it will be an 8 megapixel file, and you won't have as much leeway to manipulate the image as you would have with the RAW file if you are manipulating it in Photoshop or Camera Raw, Lightroom, whatever it is. Again, yes, it would have been nice if it was a Camera Raw file, but if you know what you're doing, you can make this work, right? So it's really cool, and it's a feature that will come in handy depending on what it is that you're shooting. Now you do have an option of saving out this image, saving out a version of the image where everything's in focus. So if we go back to that file, let me see, where is that? There you go. And if we go back into the mode, I think that's how you do it. No, sorry, I was wrong. Let's go back to, okay, so, hang on. No, I was right. I think you have to go back into it. And I think, yeah, let me see. I think you press this button up here. Okay, on, you touch this one. Okay, there you go. So you can now auto merge, or you can do it manually where it will ask you, let's try this, where it will ask you to touch first the foreground and then the background. Okay, and then again you push this button or on screen, and there you go into one photo, and this will take a few seconds. And once it's done, it will save a version of the image where both foreground and background are in focus. Big warning, from my experience, 9 out of 10 times, this will not be perfect. So you will see artifacting somewhere in the photo, especially if you are hand holding the camera. If it's on a tripod or, like it is in this case, it's, not moving, it might work. Also, another important thing to keep in mind is that if you have objects moving in the image, that's also going to decrease the chances of that image looking perfectly. Now, another really cool feature of this camera are the art filters that you have here. So you have 8 art filters to choose from. In order to access it, you just have to turn this dial up here to the art icon, And then you can set it to single mode, you can set it to burst mode over here, or you can even set it to the 4K photo mode. And you know, if you tap this icon here, let's say we want to get the retro look here, hit set, and you can actually take 4K photo using this mode. And I think you can you can also take post focus photos using these filters. So it's really cool. Keep in mind, as I mentioned, with the 4K photo feature and the art or the post focus features, you're only exporting JPEG images. Now, as I mentioned, you don't have as much leeway in post to correct those images because they're JPEG and not RAW. Well, if you use one of these filters that you really like, and you know, if that filter creates the kind of a style that you want, then you don't have to do any post-processing after that. So why don't you let the camera do all the work, and it'll be less degraded and, you know, all that stuff, and the image will look nicer. So this is a great mode to be used you know, in the various options that you have. So let's go back to the menu here. So like I said, you have 8 to choose from. I mean, there's some cool stuff, and just like with these art filters, there's also stuff where you go, yeah, it's just garbage. So, you know, I like the retro one. I do like the old days one. High key, take it or leave it. Low key, sepia, you know, it's nice. Monochrome, that's really nice. And then you got this dynamic one, that's really cool. You've got this rough one where it adds a lot of noise. So if you want to go for something stylized, you know, that's nice. Couldn't care for this one. This impressive art one, I don't know, doesn't do anything for me. High dynamic, you know, I guess maybe. Cross process, you get that Instagram type of a look. So if that's what you're going for, you know, this could work. Toy effect, it just adds a lot of vignetting and jacks up the contrast. Again, if that's what you're going for, hey, I'll work. Yeah, this does a similar thing. We've got bleach bypass. Yeah, couldn't care for less. Miniature effect. Actually, I haven't noticed that one. Okay, cool. Soft focus, fantasy. Again, it's an Instagram type of filter. Might work for you. Star filter literally adds stars to I think the highlights in your photo. So hey, that's what you like, go for it. 1 point color, sunshine, it kind of adds this sunshine effect in the background. So I'd say there's definitely 3-4 for me anyway. 3-4 filters that I definitely use, and I can definitely see myself use in the future. It's just a nice feature to have. Another really interesting feature that might be handy for some is stop motion animation. Now, this camera has time-lapse photography, which most cameras these days have. I'm not going to talk too much about it. I have actually separate videos on that. It's basically, it allows you to take one image every, let's say, 10 seconds, 20, 1 minute, whatever it is, and then you combine that into a video, right? Now, that's nothing new, but one thing that this camera has that is unique is called stop motion animation. So basically what that is, if you want to make objects move, you can do this with this camera. So let me show you what I mean. So first what you do is you set the dial here to the last icon, which looks like this here. Then you set it to one of the picture modes. And then you get the menu here, and you push this button here on screen. And here you can choose between time-lapse and stop motion. So let's take that. And then here you can either choose between auto shooting or you can do it manually. So basically the way that works, let's say we do it manually, and let's set it to every 5 seconds here. So basically what that means, every 5 seconds, the camera will take one image. So let's leave that. So what you do is you push the shutter button. Let's say we want this lens here to be the object. Okay, so we push it once, it takes a photo. Then we move it, and it's going to take another photo. Move it again, and it's going to take another photo. Move it again, and it's going to take another photo. So basically what you do is you keep moving the object, and as you can see on screen, it will show you the last frame. And if you do that for 24 or 30 frames, depending on how you set up your camera, that's going to be 1 second, right? And I shoot in 30 frames. 24 is considered cinema mode. That's what most movies are shot at. And anyway, so if you do that, and let's say we're done here. I think you push this button. Yeah, you push that button again. It's going to ask you, do you want to stop? And you say yes. Create video, yes. Now I only I don't know how many frames that was, but it definitely wasn't 1 second. Here it will ask you all the modes basically. So recording mode, how many frames per second? Do you want normal sequence or reverse? You can do reverse. So here you've got 30, you've got 15, 10, all the way down to 1 frame per second. And then here you can choose whether you want 4K, whether you want 1080, and all that stuff. So let's say this is what we want. Press OK and go yes, and it's going to create that file. Now, again, it's going to be probably half a second. So let's see what happens if we play this. Yeah, I see that was it, right? So 2 seconds basically. Now, this, again, could be a gimmicky feature, or it could be actually a very useful feature depending on what you are using it for. For me, I can see myself use this feature, for example, to illustrate certain features for product shots, something like that. So it's one of those features, you know, most people are probably not going to use it for anything, but it might actually be useful. Another really cool thing about this camera, or Panasonic in general, is the app. It's really cool, and it basically allows you to control virtually every aspect of the camera. So this is the interface when viewed in landscape mode. And as you can see here, you've got all kinds of options. You can control ISO, for example. You just select whichever one you want. Or if you go back, you can control any other aspect, such as white balance, shutter, or the aperture. And it's really just that simple. You just select whatever you want. You can also adjust the focus right in the app. So if you are filming yourself, for example, you can just tap on the screen. You can just select your face and it'll be in focus. Or if you want to focus on something else, it's very easy. If you are a one-man show, this app makes it extremely easy to operate your camera without actually having to touch it. Here's the quick menu mode, where you can also change a bunch of settings, such as the photo style or the video recording quality. Here's the home screen, where you can choose to transfer images, you can create photo collages, you can do all kinds of really cool things. And if you want to record, just hit that record button and off you go, you're recording. If you want to stop, you just press the button again. This is the image transfer mode. So if you want to transfer your images to your phone, this is how you do it. It's very simple. So right here, if I want to copy this image over to my phone, I just hit that phone icon and it just copies it over. And you can do this with JPEG or RAW files. And if I want to share this on social media or any other apps, this is how you do it. Now let's talk about the actual video. First of all, when it comes to the different video formats, you have 4K with a resolution of 3840 by 2160, and you can shoot in either 30p or 24 at 100 megabits per second. Now that's the highest quality, and it's actually really nice. I recommend to shoot in this format. Even if you're going to output to 1080p, this is the best you're going to get out of this camera. Now if you do want to shoot in full HD, you can do that too. You can either shoot with 60p at 28 megabits per second, or you can shoot 30 at 20 megabits per second. Now the 60 is good if you want to do a little bit of slow motion, although because you're shooting at 28 megabits per second, you really are losing a lot of quality. Yes, you'll be able to do a bit of slow motion, but you are losing quality. And especially if you're shooting 30p, I mean 20 megabits per second, it really is just, it's crap. So I definitely don't recommend that. And then you can also shoot in regular HD, which is 1280 by 720. I don't know why you would shoot in this mode. I mean, it's 30p and it's 10 megabits per second. Quality is just gonna be awful. I mean, I guess you would only shoot in this mode if quality is not really that big of a concern, and if you just want to maximize the space on your card, that's why you would shoot in this mode, I guess. My personal suggestion, which is what I'm doing, shoot 4K. It's going to be the best quality you can get. Shoot either 30 or 24p and you'll be fine. Now let's take a look at the low light performance on this guy. So here we have R2-D2, and this is really almost pitch black. I mean, there's a little bit of light here. So here I zoomed in by 400, digitally zoomed in, and these are the settings here: f1.4, shutter 60, and ISO 200. And as you can see, it's actually not bad. I mean, obviously there's going to be a little artifacting going on and all that, but it's actually not bad at all. Here's the same footage, and this time the ISO is 400. Everything else is the same, and 400 in this lighting situation, still really good. Obviously, again, artifacting, a little bit going on, but it's still usable for sure. Now we're into 1600 ISO, same settings for everything else. There's a lot more artifacting going on. From personal experience, 1600 is what I'm comfortable pushing this camera, and I do that quite often. You can do 3200, but it does start to fall apart. In this case, 1600 is still fine. Here we have 32. Again, a lot more artifacting going on. It's a lot more noise happening. 32, it depends on the situation. I would be very hesitant to push it to 32, but it depends on the situation. And then here we got 64 going on. I really would not push this camera to 6400 ISO. It's not going to perform well. You're going to get a lot of noise, a lot of artifacting going on, and it's just not going to look good. And here's some footage I shot, and I think when it comes to video quality, this camera is doing a really great job. There's no doubt about that. This was all shot in 4K, and here's an example of ungraded footage versus graded, and to me this looks awesome. Obviously this will not hold up to a cinema camera like the Blackmagic. There's no doubt about that. The compression rate on this guy compared to the Blackmagic, it's two different worlds. There's no doubt about that. And also this doesn't shoot in camera raw or anything like that. It shoots either AVC HD or Mpeg-4, and it's obviously heavily compressed compared to a cinema camera. However, having said all that, it's still doing a kick-ass job. I can definitely see myself use this as a B camera in addition to the Blackmagic, or for all my YouTube stuff, this will be my A camera, no doubt about that. And yeah, it's doing a great job. It is an 8-bit camera, so obviously you don't have as much leeway to push it in terms of color grading, but I think for your indie filmmaker, especially someone who's starting off, this is a great option for a really good price. When it comes to image stabilization, this camera really rocks. So it has built-in stabilization, and it also has what Panasonic calls dual stabilization, which basically means it takes advantage of the built-in stabilization, and also if you have a lens that supports stabilization, it will take advantage of that, and that will give you a 5-axis stabilization. And as you can see here, it's fine. It works really nicely. And even here where it's zoomed in 60 mil on the kit lens, I'm still hand holding this footage, and as you can see, it's still really good. There's not a lot of shakiness going on or anything. And I mean, 60 mil effectively is 120 because it's a mirrorless camera. So yeah, stabilization is really great. When it comes to autofocusing, this camera is definitely not the best, but it's also not the worst. I mean, it's actually pretty decent. Here you can see I'm moving around. It's still doing a relatively good job tracking my face and staying focused. So I definitely say if you're looking for a camera for blogging purposes where you're gonna record yourself like this, yeah, this is gonna do a good job, no doubt. Here's some testing when it comes to rolling shutter, and as you can see, it's doing a really good job. I mean, you don't get that jello-y effect. So that's it, guys. Links to everything you saw here will be in the description as always. And as you can see, this is a pretty sweet camera. To answer the question at the beginning, yes, I do believe this camera still holds up in 2018. No doubt about it. As mentioned, when it comes to photography, you know, there are better cameras out there, for sure. But When it comes to the additional features that this camera has, such as the 4K photo feature, the post focus feature, those are pretty sweet features that make this camera's photo experience a lot richer. There's no doubt about that. I mean, believe me, I have used the 4K photo feature and it is awesome, especially if you have either a newborn, if you are shooting, if you have pets and, anything where you have fast moving objects. This feature, when used properly, when you understand its limitations, obviously the fact that it exports to JPEG format and the fact that it is an 8 megapixel image, when you understand all that, man, you can do all kinds of wonderful things with this. Also, the post focus feature I really dig because it basically allows you to kind of, you don't have to commit. If you're just, taking photos randomly, let's say you're walking around, whatever it is, you're taking photos and you're not sure, what do I want to be in focus here? Don't worry about it. Make up your mind later on. You can export multiple photos or different things in focus of the same image. Whatever it is. These kinds of things, they seem gimmicky, and I first thought they are just thrown in. Actually, they're not. It really makes a lot of sense, and to me, that is one of those things that definitely makes it worth it. When it comes to the 4K video feature, definitely worth it. Again, is it the best camera even in the Panasonic lineup? No, of course not. I mean, you can get the G85, the G85S, or the G9. Although I'm not quite sure if, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not quite sure if the actual video quality will be much better. I mean, they all got the same, unless I'm mistaken, I think they all got the same sensor, and they all have obviously the same resolution, the same color profile. So this one, I didn't mention that this one does have Cine D and Cine V. So Cine D allows you to shoot very flat, I mean, as flat as it gets with these mirrorless cameras, and then you can grade the image in post, and it really allows you to do all kinds of wonderful things. So again, for the price, which I haven't mentioned yet, so this camera costs $900 with the kit lens. Now the kit lens, I'm shooting right now with this camera with the lens. It's a 12 to 60 millimeter lens. And all the footage you saw and the images you saw in this video were shot with this lens. It's a pretty sweet lens. For a kit lens, it is, from my experience, it's the best kit lens I have used so far anyway. And the range 12 to 60, which is basically 24 to 120 with the crop factor, that's kick-ass, man. That's a kick-ass range to have. And it makes it a all-purpose lens that you can really use, for any purpose, or most purposes anyway. So if you have the option of getting the $900 package with the kit lens versus the $800 package without the kit lens, the body only, get the kit lens, because that lens by itself is actually somewhere around $400 to $500. So for an additional $100, you get that lens. It's a no-brainer. So for that price, all the features you're getting here, from my experience, it can't get any better. Yes, you can get the G9, which is, what's the price on that one? It's $1,500, $1,600 at least, somewhere around there. You can, and by the way, the G9, not much better. Yes, it's got basically all these features, but just a little better. But it's a big jump there. Or you can get obviously the GH5 or the 5S. You're looking at $2,000 and up. Yeah, there's some obviously improvements, but I don't know. I don't know if it's worth that jump there. So, when you look at all that, this is really worth it. So this is my opinion. I'm definitely going to be using this as my main camera for my YouTube channel, and I'm going to use this as my B camera when I work with my Blackmagic camera, because what I'm going to do, I've mentioned this before, I don't really care about 4K in the sense of I want to export in 4K. This video is not in 4K. It's 1080 as you can see. But where having a 4K camera really pays off is the fact that, you shoot 4K, you downscale it to 1080. well, you got a lot of wiggle room there. You can digitally crop in, crop out, you know, you can digitally pan, do all kinds of things without losing resolution. That's when it really makes sense, right? You will get a lot better image quality by shooting in 4K and down scaling it to 1080. And that's where I'm hoping that that plus having the Cine D profile, that I can marry this one, at least, you know, with few B-roll shots here and there, with my Blackmagic, the original pocket camera. So that's it, guys. If you like this video, please hit the like button. As always, tell your friends, share this video. Stay tuned for more. Thanks.